Have you ever stood at the precipice of a new day, the sun casting long shadows, and wondered not just how many more days you might have, but what the quality of those days will be? It's a haunting question, particularly as we cross the threshold of 70. We live in an era of unprecedented longevity, yet a longer life doesn't automatically equate to a richer, more joyful existence. What if the very things we assume are benign, the subtle habits we've adopted, or the perspectives we cling to are silently, insidiously paving a path towards a diminished future? Many individuals with the best of intentions find their later years unexpectedly shadowed by a loss of joy, freedom, and dignity, often realizing too late that the seeds of this decline were sown in overlooked choices. This isn't about fear-mongering, it's about empowerment. It's about shining a light on those quiet saboteurs that can creep into our lives, often disguised as normal adjustments to aging or as unshakable personal traits. We're not discussing dramatic sudden calamities, but rather the slow erosion, the gradual dimming of life's vibrant colors. Today, we embark on a deep exploration of 12 such insidious undercurrents, common yet frequently ignored, that possess the power to quietly derail the peace, independence, and fulfillment you've spent a lifetime cultivating. Each represents a potential trap, capable of compromising your autonomy, fracturing your precious relationships, or robbing you of the serenity you so richly deserve. We will delve into why these patterns are so perilous, how they manifest in the everyday, and crucially, how to discern their subtle encroachment into your own life. Most importantly, this journey is about arming you with the awareness and strategies to safeguard the beautiful, vibrant years that still lie ahead. Stay with us, for some of the most profound revelations, particularly those towards the end, are often the least expected, yet hold the greatest power to transform your experience of aging. Understanding them now could illuminate your path forward, ensuring that the narrative of your later years is one of continued growth, connection, and profound contentment. 1. The creeping paralysis. Neglecting your physical health. One of the most heartbreakingly common, yet avoidable, paths to a diminished life after 70 begins with the subtle, almost imperceptible neglect of physical health. It doesn't announce itself with a sudden collapse. Rather, it's a thief that enters on tiptoe through a series of small daily decisions that seem insignificant in isolation. Perhaps it's the choice to skip a brief walk because the weather isn't perfect, the habitual reach for convenient processed foods instead of nourishing whole ones, or the dismissal of that new persistent ache in your lower back as just a part of getting older. These seemingly minor concessions, repeated day after day, month after month, accumulate with a devastating compound interest. The consequence? A gradual, relentless snowballing into major limitations. Your leg muscles, starved of their usual engagement, begin to weaken. Your sense of balance, once reliable, becomes precarious. Suddenly, simple acts like navigating a flight of stairs, rising from a comfortable armchair, or even bending to tie your shoes transform from unconscious movements into daunting physical challenges. It's a pervasive myth that the body is destined for a steep and rapid decline with age. Yes, physiological changes are inevitable. Our cells don't regenerate with the same youthful vigor. However, a significant portion of what many attribute to the inexorable march of time is, in reality, the consequence of disuse. Muscles and joints that aren't regularly moved begin to stiffen and lock up, not because they are inherently old, but because they are underutilized. The more one succumbs to a sedentary lifestyle, the more challenging it becomes to initiate movement, creating a vicious cycle where inactivity breeds further incapacity. Before long, the body, this incredible vessel that has carried you through life, can begin to feel less like a trusted ally and more like an unpredictable impediment. Consider the story of Charles, a man who, at 78, was the epitome of vitality. His days were filled with the joys of fishing, the satisfaction of tinkering with his car every Saturday, and the spontaneous delight of dancing with his wife in their sunlit kitchen. However, following a relatively minor surgical procedure, Charles understandably reduced his activity levels. He told himself, and everyone who asked, that he was merely in a phase of recovery. But the weeks turned into months, and his engagement with the world, his physical world, continued to shrink. His strength didn't just plateau, it steadily ebbed away. It wasn't the surgery itself that ultimately stole his freedom. It was the prolonged inactivity that followed. When he finally felt the urge to reclaim his former mobility, Even a short, gentle walk around his familiar block felt like scaling a formidable mountain. His story is a poignant reminder that our physical capabilities are not static. They are a direct reflection of our daily choices. But this narrative does not have to be one of inevitable decline. The power to rewrite this script lies in understanding that consistency trumps intensity. Your body isn't demanding grueling workouts or Olympic feats. It craves and responds profoundly to consistent movement. A brisk daily walk, a few gentle stretches to greet the morning sun, or even the simple act of standing while engrossed in a television program can make a world of difference. These small acts, woven into the fabric of your daily life, are deposits into your bank of independence, confidence, and the sheer ability to live life on your own terms. When you actively choose to care for your body, you're not just staving off weakness or disease. You are making a profound declaration to yourself and to the world. I still matter. I still have places to go, things to do, and life to experience. This first potential pitfall, the neglect of our physical well-being, can feel like a slow, silent erosion of our independence. If you've recognized the profound importance of consistent movement, however small, and are ready to commit to it as a cornerstone of your vitality, please share a 1 in the comments below to affirm that powerful choice. Your body will thank you for it. Number 2, the quiet echo, letting your social circle disappear. While the erosion of physical health can steal your independence, the fading of your social connections can starve your spirit in a way that few other deprivations can. After the age of 70, the landscape of our social lives often undergoes significant shifts. Friends may relocate to be closer to family or to warmer climates. Some cherished companions will inevitably pass on, and the daily routines that once naturally fostered interaction, work, school events, bustling family life may recede. Without conscious effort, it's alarmingly easy to find entire weeks slipping by, marked by a profound absence of genuine, meaningful conversation. The silence can grow, and with it, a creeping sense of isolation. What many fail to grasp is that loneliness isn't merely an unpleasant emotional state. It's a tangible threat to overall well-being. A robust body of scientific research has drawn undeniable links between social isolation in older adults and a host of serious health concerns, ranging from an increased risk of heart disease and stroke to accelerated cognitive decline and even a weakened immune system. The human brain, much like our muscles, thrives on stimulation and engagement. When we don't regularly exercise our social muscles, the art of chatting, the joy of laughter, the empathy of active listening, these vital capacities begin to atrophy. Meaningful conversations do more than just pass the time. They sharpen our cognitive faculties, reinforce our sense of identity, provide emotional support, and imbue our days with a comforting rhythm and vibrant color. Without these regular touch points, time can feel heavier, the days longer, and the world more hollow. I recall a woman named Linda, a bright and engaging individual of 81. She lived alone following the passing of her beloved husband and had no immediate family residing nearby. Initially, she was as sharp as a tack, her wit undiminished. But gradually, almost imperceptibly at first, she began to retreat into the quiet confines of her home. "I just don't feel like going out anymore," she'd explain, her voice tinged with a weariness that hadn't been there before. First, she excused herself from her weekly book club. Then her attendance at her church group became sporadic, and eventually even the ringing of the telephone often went unanswered. Within a year, Linda, once so witty and alert, became noticeably foggy and withdrawn. It wasn't a sudden failure of her intellect that caused this change, but rather the suffocating quietness that had enveloped her world. Rebuilding or diligently maintaining a vibrant social life after 70 undoubtedly requires proactive effort, but it is an investment that yields immeasurable returns. It could be as simple as picking up the phone to call an old friend you haven't spoken to in a while, summoning the courage to join a local community group centered around a hobby, or even just offering a warm hello to your neighbor. It's not about cramming your calendar with superficial engagements. It's about nurturing the fundamental human need for connection. Being around people, sharing experiences, and engaging in reciprocal communication reminds you that you belong, that you are still an integral part of the world, and that your identity is far richer than just your chronological age. So if your phone hasn't rung in a while, or if the silence in your home feels a little too profound, don't passively wait for someone else to bridge the gap. Take the initiative. Reach out. Let someone know you're thinking of them. Because staying socially connected isn't merely a pleasant bonus in later life. It's a potent form of preventative medicine, one that has the power to add not just years to your life, but more importantly, abundant life to your years. The impact of social connection is truly profound. If you found these insights into the importance of community valuable, please comment with the number 2 below. We'd love to hear if this resonates with you. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future discussions that aim to inform and inspire. Your support is what allows us to continue creating meaningful content. 3. The weight of yesterday, holding on to resentment. There's an intangible yet incredibly heavy burden that comes with carrying the unresolved grievances of the past into the precious landscape of our later years. Old grudges, arguments that were never truly settled, bitterness that may have been left unspoken but continued to simmer beneath the surface. These emotional toxins can accumulate over a lifetime. Some individuals may believe they've moved on, simply because they no longer vocalize these old wounds. But the insidious truth is that resentment has a tenacious way of embedding itself deep within our emotional and even physical being. After 70, when the finite nature of time becomes undeniably poignant, this accumulated weight can quietly yet profoundly eat away at your capacity for joy, poison your relationships, and shatter your inner peace. Resentment doesn't just color your mood, it fundamentally shapes your perception of the world. It can act like a distorted lens, making you suspicious of genuine kindness, keeping your emotional guard perpetually raised, even when vulnerability might lead to connection, and turning potentially beautiful moments sour before they even have a chance to fully bloom. You might find yourself habitually assuming that people are inherently disappointing, that no one truly understands your experiences, or that past wrongs can never truly be rectified. The most tragic aspect of this internal prison is that the person who suffers most intensely is often not the object of the resentment, but the individual who harbors it. It becomes a self-inflicted wound, continuously reopened. I once had a conversation with a man named Edward, 84 years old, who was a father to 4 grown children. He hadn't spoken a word to his eldest son in over 12 long years. He didn't show up for me when I needed him, Edward stated, his voice firm with conviction, and I'm certainly not the one who needs to apologize. However, as our conversation gently unfolded, it became increasingly clear that Edward wasn't primarily protecting his pride. He was fiercely, though perhaps unconsciously, protecting his deep-seated pain. This pain and the silence it had bred was effectively isolating him from the very people who still cared for him, including the son he missed more than he could admit. With tears welling in his eyes, he eventually confessed that he wasn't even entirely sure what the original offense was anymore, only that the ensuing silence had grown into a deafening barrier, far louder and more formidable than the initial problem itself. Forgiveness, in this context, isn't always about condoning what happened or absolving the other person of responsibility. More profoundly, it's about making a conscious, courageous choice to put down the searing burden of that pain so that you can move forward unencumbered. It's an act of self-liberation, not necessarily an absolution for the other party. At this stage of life, peace of mind isn't a luxury you can afford to endlessly postpone. The clock of life continues its relentless ticking, irrespective of whether we choose to forgive or remain shackled by past hurts. How much wiser, then, to invest your precious remaining time in building new, positive memories rather than endlessly reliving old wounds. If you find yourself holding on to a resentment, whether it's towards a specific person or a past event, ask yourself this deeply honest question. Is this bitterness truly serving you, or is it merely holding you captive? You don't need to erase the memory, but you unequivocally deserve to feel free from its emotional stranglehold. Letting go, even if it's just a small tentative step, can create invaluable space in your heart, space for connection, for understanding, and perhaps for profound healing. This journey towards emotional freedom can be transformative. If you agree that letting go of past hurts is crucial for peace in later life, comment 3 below. Your insights and experiences are valuable to our community. Number 4, the illusion of strength. Refusing to ask for help. A quiet, often stoic, kind of pride is a hallmark of many individuals who have navigated decades of life, building careers, raising families, and overcoming countless challenges through sheer self-reliance. While this strength is admirable and born from resilience, it can, in the later chapters of life, subtly transform into a hidden trap. After the age of 70, persistently refusing to ask for help isn't merely a display of stubbornness. It can become a genuinely dangerous pattern, leading to unnecessary struggle, increased risk, and profound isolation. Whether the need pertains to your physical health, the upkeep of your home, or the complexities of your emotional well-being, maintaining a facade of complete self-sufficiency, keeping all your needs and vulnerabilities locked tightly within, may feel like preserving your dignity. However, it often paves the way for preventable hardships. Many of us were raised in an era where asking for assistance was often perceived or even explicitly taught as a sign of weakness or inadequacy. But the truth is, it requires immense wisdom, self-awareness, and courage to recognize when support is genuinely needed and to reach out for it. That internal voice of pride can be seductive, whispering, "You've managed everything on your own this far. Don't start leaning on others now." Yet, this voice frequently stems from underlying fears. The fear of appearing vulnerable, the fear of being perceived as a burden, or the fear of admitting that, yes, things are indeed changing. However, refusing to ask for help doesn't magically keep you strong. It simply makes the consequences of unaddressed challenges heavier and more impactful when they inevitably arrive. Consider the poignant case of Harold, a 76-year-old man who lived alone after his wife's passing. He began experiencing increasing difficulty navigating the stairs in his multi-story home, but was adamant about not bothering anyone. His independence was a source of great pride. One unfortunate day, he slipped on the stairs and suffered a painful hip fracture. When his concerned daughter later asked why he had never mentioned his struggles, his answer was heartbreakingly simple: "I didn't want to be a problem." What Harold and many like him often don't fully realize is that the people who genuinely love us don't view our needs as problems. They see us as cherished family, as beloved friends. Asking for help in this context isn't an admission of burdensome inadequacy. It's an invitation to connect, to allow others to express their care and support. Help, of course, comes in myriad forms. It can be physical assistance with tasks that have become challenging, emotional support in the form of a listening ear during difficult times, or practical help with navigating technology or managing household repairs. Perhaps it's having someone double-check your medications, assist in fixing a loose railing that poses a safety hazard, or simply sit with you and offer companionship when you need to talk. Each time you courageously ask for help, you are not surrendering a piece of your independence. Rather, you are offering others the precious gift of allowing them to show they care. Furthermore, when you model the act of asking for help, you demonstrate a profound strength, not weakness. You show others, particularly younger generations, that it's perfectly acceptable to be human, that life's journey isn't meant to be shouldered entirely alone, and that interdependence is just as noble and valuable as fierce independence. So if you've been struggling quietly, wrestling with challenges under the silent mantra of "I'll figure it out on my own," I urge you to pause and consider, what if you didn't have to bear that burden in solitude? What if receiving support was an integral part of living well, rather than a sign of giving up? The truth is, accepting help when it's genuinely needed doesn't diminish your dignity. It actively protects and preserves it. Recognizing the courage it takes to ask for help is a vital step. If you believe that seeking support is a sign of wisdom, not weakness, please share your thoughts by commenting with the number 4 below. 5. The pill paradox: over-relying on medications. As we navigate the intricate journey of aging, it's not uncommon for the list of prescribed medications to grow. Pills for blood pressure, cholesterol management, sleep aids, pain relief. The medicine cabinet can begin to resemble a small pharmacy. While pharmaceuticals are undeniable lifesavers and can dramatically improve quality of life for many conditions, an excessive or unexamined reliance on medication to soothe every ache, pain, or discomfort can quietly morph into a significant problem in its own right. Many older adults, unfortunately, fall into a routine of taking pills, sometimes numerous pills, almost reflexively, often without consistently questioning their ongoing necessity, their precise purpose, or, critically, how they might interact with each other. This silent, often unscrutinized habit can gradually chip away at your mental clarity, sap your energy levels, and subtly diminish your overall quality of life. Let us be unequivocally clear. Modern medicine is a marvel, and medications play a crucial role in managing and treating countless illnesses. However, it's also true that medications can sometimes mask the underlying causes of symptoms, creating an illusion of stability, while the actual root of the health issue continues to decline unaddressed, hidden behind the symptomatic relief. Feeling persistently tired? There's often a pill offered for that. Trouble falling or staying asleep? Another prescription might seem like the easy answer. Experiencing mild chronic pain? Here's one more pill to add to the regimen. But what about the foundational problem? Are we truly treating the cause, or are we merely papering over the cracks, applying a temporary fix to a deeper issue that might benefit from a different approach? I recall a conversation with a gentleman named Frank, aged 82. At one point, his daily medication regimen consisted of nearly a dozen different pills. He candidly admitted he couldn't clearly remember what half of them were specifically for, and it turned out some were prescribed primarily to counteract the side effects of others, a common phenomenon known as a prescribing cascade. Over time, Frank noticed his hands had begun to tremble, his memory became frustratingly fuzzy, and he generally felt like a pale shadow of his former self. Fortunately, a new, thorough physician took the time to meticulously review his entire medication list. Together, they were able to safely and gradually reduce his pharmaceutical load. Within a few short weeks, Frank reported feeling more alert, steadier on his feet, and mentally clearer than he had in years. It wasn't simply old age that had been making him feel foggy and unwell. It was, in significant part, the burden of overmedication. This discussion is not an encouragement to impulsively discard your prescriptions. That would be irresponsible and potentially dangerous. Instead, it's a call to cultivate awareness, to remain actively involved in your healthcare decisions, and to never hesitate to ask pertinent questions. What specifically is this medication for? Do I genuinely still need to be taking it? Are there any non-drug alternatives or lifestyle modifications that could potentially address this issue or reduce my reliance on this pill? These are not rebellious or disrespectful questions. They are the questions of a responsible, engaged patient. You have an absolute right to understand what substances are going into your body and how they are affecting you. It's also crucial to remember that your body's physiology changes with age. The way you metabolize medication at 75 or 80 is not the same as it was at 45 or 50. A dosage or a specific drug that was once beneficial might now be too potent, less effective, or even harmful. This is precisely why regular, comprehensive medication reviews with your doctor or a qualified pharmacist are so vitally important. Sometimes the healthiest and most empowering step forward isn't adding another pill to the cocktail. It's thoughtfully and safely subtracting the unnecessary ones. You don't have to be anti-medicine to be judicious and careful with its use. The ultimate goal is to remember that pills should support your life, not define it. The more attuned you are to what your body truly needs, and the more proactive you are in managing your medications, the more likely you are to feel like your authentic self again. Sharp, steady, and firmly in control. This mindful approach to medication is key. If you agree on the importance of regularly reviewing medications with a healthcare professional, let us know by commenting 5 below. Your engagement helps us understand what topics matter most to you. 6. When home becomes a hurdle, living in an environment that no longer suits your needs. For most of us, our home is a sanctuary, a repository of cherished memories, the one place in the world where we feel unequivocally safe and comfortable. It's difficult to imagine that this very haven could, over time, subtly transform into a danger zone. Yet, after 70, the familiar contours of a beloved home, that second-floor bedroom you've slept in for decades, those steep front steps you once bounded up with ease, the dimly lit hallway you've navigated countless times without a thought, can slowly but surely morph into silent, daily threats. As our physical capabilities naturally evolve with age, our living environment must adapt in kind. When this crucial adaptation doesn't occur, the risk of accidents and the subsequent loss of independence doesn't just grow, it multiplies. This isn't solely about dramatic, life-altering falls or acute accidents, though those are tragically common and can have devastating consequences. It's also about the more insidious, subtle ways an unsuitable home can begin to systematically work against you, eroding your confidence and restricting your activities. Consider the bathroom lacking essential grab bars, making bathing a precarious activity. Think of kitchen cabinets mounted so high that they require risky stretching, or the use of an unsteady step stool. Picture the cozy-looking area rugs that, while once adding warmth, now have edges that can catch a foot just enough to disrupt your balance. These may seem like minor, almost trivial details, but in the context of aging, such small environmental details can have profoundly large and often negative consequences. Let me share the story of Eleanor. At 79, she had lived in the same cherished home for over 40 years and loved every nook and cranny of it. However, the once manageable staircase to her bedroom had become increasingly difficult to navigate, and the laundry room, inconveniently located in the basement, presented a daily challenge. Eleanor, fiercely independent, insisted on doing everything herself. "This is my house," she'd declare with conviction. "I'm not leaving. I can manage." One afternoon, however, she misjudged a step while descending the stairs and took a tumble, fracturing her wrist. The physical recovery was lengthy, but perhaps even more impactful was the recovery from the loss of confidence that followed. She began to hesitate before undertaking simple tasks, to second-guess her movements, and to gradually pull back from activities she once enjoyed. The house hadn't just caused a fall. It had, in a very real sense, begun to steal her freedom. The unvarnished truth is that an understandable emotional attachment to a familiar living space can sometimes come at the steep price of your safety, your energy reserves, and your overall peace of mind. This doesn't automatically necessitate a drastic move to an entirely new residence, though that may be the wisest course in some situations. Often it means making thoughtful, proactive adjustments to your current home. This could involve installing brighter, more effective lighting, particularly in hallways and on stairs, diligently removing or securing all potential trip hazards like loose rugs and electrical cords, perhaps thoughtfully reconfiguring your living space to move your primary bedroom to the ground floor, or installing strategically placed handrails and grab bars in key areas like bathrooms and along walkways. These modifications aren't admissions of weakness. They are expressions of foresight and a commitment to continued well-being. They declare, "I am planning to live well, safely, and independently, right where I am." And if, after careful consideration and perhaps professional consultation, it becomes clear that your current home truly cannot be adequately modified to support your changing needs, then exploring alternative living arrangements, ones that are designed to enhance your independence rather than subtly undermine it, becomes an act of profound self-care. That decision isn't about giving up. It's about choosing freedom over daily friction, ease over potentially fraught nostalgia, and safety over sentimentality. Your home should be a supportive partner in your life, not a quiet adversary that gradually diminishes your ability to thrive. Take a moment, a truly honest moment, to look around your current living space. See it not through the eyes of the person you were 30 years ago, but with the accumulated wisdom and realistic perspective of who you are today. What needs to shift? What modifications, small or large, would make your daily life smoother, easier, and above all, safer? You have earned comfort, and you most certainly have earned security. Don't let an understandable loyalty to a building inadvertently cost you the vibrant, engaged life you are still very much meant to enjoy. This reflection on our living spaces is crucial. If you're finding these insights on adapting your home for safety and comfort valuable, please comment with the number 6 below. And if you haven't already, we encourage you to subscribe and activate the notification bell. Your support enables us to continue bringing you content designed to inform and inspire. 7. Navigating new waters. Not adapting to financial changes. The notion of retirement often brings to mind images of leisure and a departure from the daily grind of work. However, one crucial aspect of life that doesn't retire when you do is your finances. In fact, after the age of 70, the way you manage your financial resources can quietly yet profoundly shape your entire quality of life, for better or for worse. The inherent danger here isn't always a simple matter of having insufficient funds, although that is a reality for some. Often, the more insidious threat lies in a failure to adapt, clinging to old spending habits, relying on outdated budgetary assumptions, or neglecting to address emerging financial blind spots. These oversights can slowly, almost imperceptibly, steer you towards increased stress, unwelcome debt, or even an uncomfortable dependence on others, frequently without you fully recognizing the trajectory until the situation feels overwhelmingly out of control. You've likely heard individuals, perhaps even yourself, remark, "I've always managed my money just fine." While past financial prudence is commendable, The critical point to grasp is that the financial strategies and habits that served you well at 50 or 60 may not be adequate or appropriate for the realities of life at 75 or beyond. The fundamental rhythms of your expenses inevitably change. Healthcare costs, for instance, often exhibit a clear upward trend in later years. Income sources typically shift from regular employment paychecks to more fixed streams like pensions, Social Security, or investment withdrawals. Yet, surprisingly, many people never pause to comprehensively reevaluate their financial landscape in light of these evolving circumstances. They may continue spending patterns established in a different era of life, inadvertently ignoring the quiet, persistent drip of new or increased expenses that can accumulate much faster than anticipated. I recall a conversation with a gentleman named Ronald, 74 years of age, who had always prided himself on his frugal nature and careful money management. However, he hadn't conducted a thorough review of his overall financial situation since his wife had passed away several years prior. He was still diligently paying premiums for insurance policies that were no longer necessary or cost-effective, maintaining subscriptions to services he rarely, if ever, used, and felt an obligation to donate to nearly every charitable appeal that arrived in his mailbox. One day, with a sense of dawning unease, he realized that his savings were diminishing at a rate far quicker than he had planned or anticipated. This wasn't because he had suddenly become careless or extravagant. It was a direct consequence of not adapting his financial practices to his current life stage. Your later years should ideally be a time of reduced stress and increased enjoyment, not a period fraught with mounting financial anxiety. Achieving this often means undertaking a courageous and honest review of your current spending habits, meticulously checking for any leaks in your budget where money might be unnecessarily trickling away. And this is a point of profound importance. It often involves letting go of any residual guilt or reluctance surrounding money. Many seniors feel uncomfortable spending on their own well-being, or even broaching financial topics with their adult children. However, silence and avoidance in financial matters can precipitate far more significant harm in the long run than open, honest communication. Don't be afraid to seek assistance in reviewing your financial situation. This help could come from a trusted family member with financial acumen, a qualified financial advisor, or even a representative at your local bank. Allow them to help you identify potential risks, navigate the complexities of modern finance, avoid prevalent scams targeting seniors, and make smart, informed adjustments. Sometimes a few relatively simple changes, such as consolidating accounts for easier management, canceling unused subscriptions, or creating a realistic spending plan tailored to your current income and needs, can restore an enormous sense of control and peace of mind. Furthermore, if your financial picture includes providing ongoing support to adult children or grandchildren, it's vital to approach this with mindful generosity. While kindness is a beautiful virtue, it should never come at the expense of your own financial security and peace of mind. You've worked hard, saved diligently, and given generously throughout your life. Now is the time to protect what you have and ensure it serves to support your well-being. Financial freedom in your 70s and beyond isn't merely about the amount of money you possess. It's fundamentally about having clarity, confidence, and the agency to make choices without being overshadowed by fear or uncertainty. By adapting wisely and proactively to your evolving financial landscape, you give yourself the very best chance to enjoy these precious years with a sense of calm, security, and well-deserved confidence. And that, my friend, is an investment worth every penny. Adapting financially is a cornerstone of a secure future. If this discussion on financial well-being in later life has been helpful, please comment 7 below. We appreciate knowing which topics resonate most with our audience. Number 8, the unseen drain, living with people who dim your spirit. One of the most profoundly overlooked yet deeply impactful factors that can insidiously ruin your later years isn't necessarily a physical illness, a debilitating injury, or even financial hardship. It can be the very people with whom you share your daily living space. After the age of 70, your immediate environment, including its emotional climate, matters more intensely than ever before. Living with someone, be it an adult child, a grandchild, a sibling, or even a spouse, who consistently criticizes, attempts to control, creates pervasive tension, or simply fails to acknowledge your worth, can slowly, methodically wear you down in ways you may not even consciously register at first. You might find yourself rationalizing the situation, telling yourself, I'm just trying to keep the peace, or it's family, I have to endure it. But here lies a crucial truth that demands acknowledgement. Regardless of the relationship, if being in someone's presence consistently leaves you feeling small, anxious, invisible, or emotionally depleted, it constitutes a serious issue. This isn't merely a matter of fleeting unhappiness, it's a significant threat to your holistic health. Chronic emotional stress, the kind often engendered by a difficult living situation, can have far-reaching physiological consequences. It can disrupt your sleep patterns, negatively affect your appetite and digestion, contribute to elevated blood pressure, and even compromise the effectiveness of your immune system. When this pervasive stress emanates from someone you live with, there's often no genuine escape, no true sanctuary. It becomes a low, constant, unsettling hum in the background of your daily existence. You might wake up feeling tense before the day has even begun, find yourself hesitating to speak freely or express your opinions, or gradually stop inviting friends over, subtly isolating yourself further. Little by little, almost imperceptibly, you risk losing the essence of who you are. I once met a woman named Joyce, aged 75, who, after her husband passed away, moved in with her daughter's family. On the surface, it seemed like a practical and supportive arrangement. However, as time went on, Joyce began to feel less like a cherished family member and more like an unpaid domestic helper. She cooked, cleaned, and regularly babysat her grandchildren, yet she had little to no say in the household decisions or its general atmosphere. Her son-in-law was often cold and distant. Her grandchildren, absorbed in their own worlds, frequently ignored her, and her daughter, though generally kind-hearted, would often dismiss Joyce's subtle discomfort with phrases like, "Oh, Mom, just try to go with the flow." Joyce, a woman of quiet dignity, never complained overtly, but her inner spark visibly dimmed. She stopped reading, a lifelong passion, lost a noticeable amount of weight, and began experiencing distressing panic attacks. It wasn't her chronological age that was causing this decline. It was the emotionally taxing environment she was living in. Protecting your precious emotional space is every bit as vital as protecting your physical well-being. This isn't an act of selfishness. It's an act of profound self-awareness and self-preservation. If a living situation is consistently draining your spirit and undermining your sense of self, you have an inherent right to speak up. You have the right to establish clear, healthy boundaries. And yes, if circumstances become untenable and harmful, you have the right to consider and, if necessary, pursue alternative living arrangements. These later years should be characterized by peace, not perpetual pressure, by joy, not constant judgment. If you find yourself habitually walking on eggshells in what is supposed to be your own home, then that space is not truly a home. It's a trap, and you do not need to justify your feelings of discomfort or unhappiness to anyone. Your feelings, your internal experience, are reason enough. Sometimes the most courageous and self-loving action you can take is to articulate clearly and calmly, "This situation is no longer working for me." Whether this brave declaration leads to a more constructive conversation, a renegotiated living agreement, or the decision to find a new, more supportive home altogether, the act of reclaiming your peace is never, ever a mistake. You have unequivocally earned the right to feel safe, respected, and fundamentally at ease in the place where you lay your head at night. Do not allow anyone, no matter how close the familial tie, to take that fundamental right away from you. Your emotional well-being is paramount. If you believe in the importance of a supportive home environment and setting healthy boundaries, share your agreement by commenting 8 below. Let's affirm the right to peace in our own homes. 9. The mind's hibernation, staying mentally stagnant. There's a subtle shift that can occur after a certain age, often unnoticed and unremarked upon, where many individuals quietly cease to actively challenge their minds. The intriguing books begin to gather dust on the shelves, once loved hobbies gradually fade into the background, and conversations, when they happen, tend to become shorter, more routine, and less exploratory. It's not necessarily that they've lost all interest in the world around them. Rather, a pernicious belief can take root. The idea that it doesn't really matter anymore, or the resignation of, "I'm too old for all that." But the profound truth is that your brain, much like your body, requires consistent movement, stimulation, and novelty to maintain its vitality. When it's deprived of these essential inputs, it can begin to shrink, metaphorically and sometimes even physically, slowly, quietly, and in some cases with a permanence that is deeply saddening. Mental stagnation isn't merely about experiencing occasional forgetfulness or misplacing your keys more often. It's a more profound decline. The gradual loss of your innate sense of curiosity, the dwindling of your drive to ask why or how, the fading of that inner spark that ignites the desire to learn something new or try a different approach. When this intellectual vibrancy diminishes, life itself can start to feel flatter, less engaging. The days may begin to blend into a monotonous tapestry. Your self-confidence can subtly erode. And worst of all, you might start to internalize the disheartening lie that there's nothing truly exciting or stimulating left to discover or experience. I remember a gentleman named Gerald, 80 years old, who had enjoyed a long and fulfilling career as a dedicated science teacher. For decades, his mind had been alive with concepts, theories, and the joy of sharing knowledge. But after retiring, he consciously stepped away from these intellectual pursuits. He stopped reading scientific journals, ceased engaging in discussions about new discoveries, and essentially closed the door on that vibrant part of his life. That chapter is over, he'd say with a tone of finality. And slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, he began to fade, not so much physically, but mentally. His world gradually shrank, eventually encompassing little more than a few repetitive television shows and the same well-worn conversations. However, one day, a visiting relative handed him a recently published book on astronomy, a subject he had once passionately taught. As he tentatively opened its pages, something remarkable happened. A flicker of light, long dormant, reignited in his eyes. "I used to love this stuff," he whispered, almost to himself. Within a few weeks, inspired by this reawakening, Gerald joined a small online discussion group focused on scientific topics and even began tentatively writing down his own thoughts and reflections again. This transformation didn't occur because someone forced him or prescribed it. It happened because the door to intellectual engagement had always been there, unlocked. He had simply, for a time, forgotten it was open. Embracing lifelong learning doesn't necessitate enrolling in formal academic courses or pursuing advanced degrees, though those are wonderful options for some. It can be as simple and accessible as watching an engaging documentary that piques your interest, trying out a new recipe that introduces you to different flavors and techniques, picking up a daily crossword puzzle or Sudoku to exercise your logic skills, or even humbly asking your grandchild to show you how to use a new app or navigate a social media platform. The primary objective isn't to become an undisputed expert in a new field. It's to keep your mind awake, agile, and receptive. Every new skill you attempt to acquire, every new piece of information you absorb, is like a breath of fresh, invigorating air for your brain. And please, don't let technology intimidate you or cause you to withdraw. Many seniors understandably avoid new digital tools out of a fear that they'll mess it up or appear inept. But there is absolutely no shame in being a beginner, regardless of your age. In fact, embracing the role of a novice again is one of the healthiest mental exercises you can undertake. It cultivates patience, fosters adaptability, and builds a unique kind of confidence. 3 qualities that are invaluable assets to all of us, no matter what the calendar says. So, if your days have begun to feel a little too quiet, a shade too repetitive, or tinged with a sense of passive observation rather than active engagement, take that as a gentle but clear signal. Your mind is asking for more. It's yearning for stimulation. Because a curious, engaged mind remains vibrant and young, irrespective of the number of birthdays celebrated. The vitality of a curious mind is ageless. If you're still with us and finding these insights on mental agility valuable, please comment with the number 9 below to let us know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, we warmly invite you to do so and turn on the bell so you don't miss any of our future videos designed to help you live your best life. Your support truly helps us continue creating content that informs and inspires. 10. The Adrift Soul. Ignoring your sense of purpose. When the defining roles of a long career have concluded, when the children are grown and leading their own independent lives, and when the general pace of daily existence naturally slows, many individuals find themselves quietly, sometimes uncomfortably, asking, "What now?" After the age of 70, the inherent danger isn't merely the onset of boredom, though that can certainly be a component. It's the more profound risk of drifting through your days without a clear sense of direction, without a why that propels you forward. When purpose wanes, even the calmest, most leisurely days can feel strangely hollow. The hours pass, marked by the ticking clock, but they may not feel truly lived. This creeping sense of emptiness doesn't just affect your mood, it can gradually wear away at the very fabric of your spirit, leaving you feeling untethered and less vital. It's essential to understand that purpose in this context isn't necessarily about grand, world changing achievements or a return to high stakes professional endeavors. It's not exclusively about running a multinational corporation or single handedly saving the rainforests, admirable though those pursuits may be. More often, and perhaps more sustainably, purpose in later life is found in the seemingly smaller, yet deeply meaningful acts and intentions that give your days shape, meaning, and a reason to get out of bed in the morning. It could be the dedicated tending of a small garden, offering a source of beauty and nourishment. It might be the commitment to regularly call a friend who is feeling lonely or unwell, providing invaluable support. It could manifest in teaching your grandchild a practical skill like how to bake your famous cookies or fix a leaky faucet, passing on knowledge and creating bonds. Or it might be as beautifully simple as consciously choosing to be the person in your social circle who consistently shows up with a genuine smile and a kind word, radiating warmth and positivity. I knew a woman named Bernice, 77 years old, who had recently retired from a long and dedicated career at the local post office. For the initial period after retirement, she was genuinely thrilled to rest, to have unstructured time, and to simply be. But after that first year of leisure, a subtle change began to creep in. She started sleeping later into the morning, found herself watching more television than she ever had before, and began declining invitations to her usual social groups. "I don't really do much anymore," she'd say, a hint of resignation in her voice, and you could see it, the way her eyes had lost some of their characteristic spark. Then, a neighbor, aware of Bernice's lifelong passion for knitting, tentatively asked if she might be willing to teach a weekly knitting class for beginners at the local community library. At first, Bernice hesitated. "Why would anyone want to learn from me?" she demurred, her confidence a little shaky. But she agreed to try, and within just a few weeks of starting the class, her entire demeanor, her very posture, visibly changed. She had found a new purpose, not flashy or loud, but deeply human, connecting her to others and allowing her to share a skill she loved. Your purpose doesn't have to be something that earns accolades or is even visible to the wider world. It simply has to be real and meaningful to you. Perhaps it's found in the quiet art of storytelling, sharing your life experiences with younger generations. Maybe it's in offering comfort and a listening ear to someone who is struggling with grief or illness. It could even be the profound daily responsibility of caring for a beloved pet whose unconditional love and dependence provides a powerful reason to engage with life. The core point is this: you matter. Your presence, your voice, your unique energy, they still carry weight and have an impact on the world around you. When you begin to doubt or stop believing in your inherent value and capacity to contribute, you start to shrink in your own eyes, and that is a tragedy. It is truly never too late to ask yourself, with genuine curiosity and openness, what am I here for today? Not for the rest of my life, not even for this year or this decade, but just for today. Purpose is often built not in singular monumental acts, but in a series of small, intentional actions, repeated with heart and sincerity. When you live your life as if you still matter profoundly, because you do, you begin to feel deep within your core that you still matter. And that, my dear friend, changes absolutely everything. Finding meaning in each day is a powerful practice. If you believe that maintaining a sense of purpose is vital for a fulfilling later life, please comment 10 below. We value your perspective. 11. The futile chase, pursuing youth instead of embracing age. There exists a vast and crucial difference between nurturing a youthful spirit, maintaining curiosity, playfulness, and an open heart, and desperately attempting to cling to or project the illusion that you are still 35 years old when you've gracefully passed the milestone of 70. In our modern, often youth-obsessed culture, some individuals unfortunately fall into the subtle but damaging trap of relentlessly chasing youth. They may invest significant time, considerable financial resources, and a great deal of emotional energy into trying to look younger, act in ways they perceive as younger, or meticulously avoid any person, activity, or conversation that might remind them of their actual age. While taking a healthy pride in one's appearance and maintaining vitality are certainly positive things, the constant, often frantic battle against the natural progression of time can quietly, yet profoundly, drain your joy, erode your self-worth, and shatter your inner peace. Attempting to stay perpetually young at all costs frequently leads down the corrosive path of comparison. You might find yourself constantly measuring your current self against the memory of who you used to be decades ago, or against others of a similar age who, in your perception, seem to be aging better. This mindset inevitably turns every newly discovered wrinkle into a perceived failure, every normal ache or pain into a dreaded flaw, and every strand of silver hair into something to be urgently hidden or eradicated. It's an exhausting, unwinnable war because no matter how fervently you try, the clock of life keeps its steady, implacable pace. If your happiness becomes contingent on remaining physically unchanged, on freezing time, you are setting yourself up for a perpetual sense of inadequacy and disappointment. I once knew a man named Dennis, 73, who invested what amounted to a small fortune in a wide array of anti-aging treatments, expensive hair dyes, potent skin creams, and even experimental injections he hoped would turn back the years. He would often say that these efforts made him feel in control. However, the underlying truth, which he rarely admitted even to himself, was that he was utterly terrified of being perceived as old. This deep-seated fear had a profound impact on his lifestyle. He actively avoided spending time with people his own age, skipped social events where he worried he might feel too old in comparison to others, and gradually, almost imperceptibly, began to isolate himself. His life, paradoxically, became smaller and more constrained, not directly because of his chronological age, but because of the immense effort he expended in trying to deny it. But aging, when embraced with wisdom and acceptance, can be a truly beautiful and enriching phase of life. There's a unique calm, a quiet confidence, and a profound depth of understanding that often only comes with the passage of considerable time. The way you carry yourself, enriched by a lifetime of experiences, the compelling stories you've lived and can share, the hard-won wisdom that shines behind your words, these are not imperfections to be covered up or apologized for. They are precious assets, treasures to be acknowledged, valued, and generously shared. Consciously letting go of the relentless race to appear young doesn't mean letting yourself go in a negative sense. Instead, it means allowing yourself to be authentically, gracefully, and unapologetically. It means taking excellent care of your body because you love and respect it for the incredible journey it has carried you on, not because you despise the natural ways it is changing. It means dressing in a style that feels comfortable, authentic, and joyful to you, not to impress someone whose opinion ultimately doesn't matter. It means choosing to see your accumulated years not as a burden or a decline, but as a precious gift, a tapestry woven with unique experiences and insights. You don't need to constantly chase the fleeting ghost of your past to have a rich, full, and meaningful life today. In fact, the more profoundly you make peace with where you are in your life's journey, the more open and receptive you become to genuine joy, deep love, and a resilient sense of purpose. All the truly timeless qualities that never, ever age. Embracing the wisdom of age is a gift. If this resonates with you and you believe in finding beauty in every stage of life, comment 11 below. Your thoughts enrich our community. 12. The unspoken territory. Avoiding conversations about death. For a great many people, the subject of death feels like a heavily bolted door, one best left firmly closed and unacknowledged. Particularly after reaching the age of 70, it's not at all unusual for individuals to meticulously avoid talking about mortality altogether. This avoidance might stem from a place of deep-seated fear, profound discomfort, a cultural reluctance to broach such a morbid topic, or perhaps even a subtle, almost superstitious hope that by not speaking its name, death itself will somehow be kept at a greater distance. However, the poignant truth is that avoiding the topic of death doesn't offer any genuine protection or postponement. Instead, it often leaves both you and the people you love most deeply unprepared, emotionally, practically, and spiritually, for one of life's most absolute and universal certainties. When you consistently sidestep any contemplation or discussion of mortality, vital decisions often get indefinitely delayed. Wills may remain unwritten or outdated, creating potential legal and financial complexities for survivors. Your deeply personal final wishes regarding medical care, memorial services, or the distribution of sentimental possessions may stay unspoken, leaving your loved ones to guess and potentially disagree during an already fraught time. Emotional closure, the sharing of final sentiments, or the mending of old rifts may never get the chance to happen. This pattern of avoidance, while perhaps understandable, frequently creates a legacy of unnecessary confusion, heightened stress, and sometimes even painful conflict for your family, your caregivers, and occasionally, even for you in your final days if your wishes are unknown or unheeded. I once spoke with a woman named Carol, 82 years old, whose husband had passed away quite suddenly and unexpectedly. We had always avoided the topic, she shared, her voice thick with a mixture of grief and regret. We thought we had more time. As a direct consequence of this lifelong avoidance, Carol found herself with no clear idea of what her husband would have wanted in terms of end-of-life medical interventions, his preferences for burial versus cremation, or even how he wished for his cherished personal belongings to be handled. The grief she was experiencing was already an immense and heavy burden, but the added layer of uncertainty, the constant questioning of, "Am I doing what he would have wanted?" made her bereavement even more painful and complicated. "I just wish we'd talked," she whispered, her eyes reflecting a deep sorrow. "Even just once." Engaging in conversations about death doesn't magically invite it to arrive sooner. Rather, it empowers you to live the remainder of your life more freely, more consciously, and with a greater sense of peace. When you've taken the courageous steps to say what needs to be said, to make the practical and personal choices that authentically reflect your values, and to provide your loved ones with clear, compassionate guidance, a profound sense of calm can settle within you. You are no longer living in the shadow of a quiet, undefined fear. You are living with intention, clarity, and a deeper connection to what truly matters. These conversations don't have to be morbid or depressing. They can be, and often are, rooted in profound love and care. What do you want people to remember most about you? How do you envision your unique story being told and carried forward? What brings you genuine comfort and peace? And what types of interventions would you wish to avoid? Who do you trust implicitly to make important decisions on your behalf if you are no longer able to make them for yourself? These are not inherently scary questions. Approached with thoughtfulness, they are sacred, life-affirming inquiries. And here's a beautiful paradox that most people don't realize until they experience it. Openly talking about death often deepens rather than diminishes your appreciation for life. It serves as a potent reminder to say, "I love you" more often, to forgive more quickly and completely, and to truly savor the precious, fleeting moments of the time you have. It's not ultimately about meticulously planning to die. It's about consciously choosing how you want to live, fully and authentically, until that time comes, with clarity, grace, and an enduring sense of connection. You don't need to have all the answers figured out right away. Simply begin, one conversation, one written reflection, one small step towards peace. Because when you stop being afraid of the end, you invariably make much more room for the richness and beauty of everything in between. This final point is perhaps one of the most profound. If you believe in the importance of these conversations for peace of mind, please share a 12 in the comments. It helps us know these deeper topics are valued. Final thoughts, illuminating the path ahead. As we draw this exploration to a close, please take a quiet moment to reflect on these 12 potential undercurrents we've navigated together. Which of these resonated most deeply with you? Was there a particular habit or mindset that you recognized, perhaps with a start, as something that has subtly begun to creep into your own life? Or maybe there's a quiet, lingering concern you've been carrying, something that after our discussion, you now feel empowered and ready to release or address. The undeniable truth is that life after 70 can be, and indeed should be, exceptionally rich, profoundly meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. However, this vibrant potential can only be fully realized if we remain vigilantly awake to those subtle, often insidious forces that threaten to steal that richness away from us. Some of the greatest dangers we face in these later chapters are not the loud, dramatic, or obvious crises. Instead, they are the quiet saboteurs, the gradual erosions, the patterns so easy to ignore or rationalize until their cumulative impact becomes undeniable. This is precisely why the act of noticing them, of bringing them into the light of conscious awareness, is so incredibly powerful. Because once you truly see them for what they are, you gain the agency to choose differently, to chart a new course. So the vital question now becomes, which of these insights, which of these potential areas for growth or change do you want to begin addressing today? You don't need to feel overwhelmed by the prospect of tackling all 12 simultaneously. The journey of 1,000 miles, as they say, begins with a single step. Start with one small shift in perspective, one conscious decision to honor yourself more fully, one proactive step towards nurturing the precious life you still have stretching ahead of you. Because it is never, ever too late to rewrite the story of how you live, to infuse your days with renewed purpose, deeper connection, and more vibrant well-being. Thank you for joining us on this important journey today. We sincerely hope these reflections have offered you valuable food for thought and practical inspiration. We would genuinely love to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave a comment below and share one key insight you learned or were reminded of today, and perhaps how you plan to integrate that wisdom into your life moving forward. Your thoughts, experiences, and reflections are incredibly important to us and to the wider community we are building here. Reading your comments provides us with great motivation and encouragement to continue this work. If you enjoyed this video and found its content helpful and thought-provoking, we would be deeply grateful if you would consider liking the video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing it with others who might benefit. Your support is what enables us to continue creating meaningful content designed to inform, inspire, and empower. Thank you for watching, and we eagerly look forward to seeing you in the next video. Remember, the journey of a well-lived life is an ongoing masterpiece. Cherish every brushstroke.